Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Automated Advantage. We have Nick on this week, and so Nick, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, hi Greg. My name is Nick Wassenberg. I am dialing in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm the CEO of a company called Cluedo. That's Cludo. We're a global company that helps large websites provide site search, so help their visitors find exactly what they're looking for. And now we're providing not just site search results, but also AI summaries and AI chats and AI conversations specifically for large content websites. Imagine government, higher education, banking, manufacturing, and so forth. So that's what we do. It's a unique space, but full of AI and full of kind of what's happening on websites today. So it's fun to be a part of.
Yeah, no, that sounds interesting. So, how long have you been in business? And obviously, you guys saw a hole in the market, something you could do better, or what was the impetus to get the business going?
Yeah, I think I maybe to set the stage a little bit, Cluedo's been in business over 10 years now. I joined almost 3 years ago as the CEO, so I'm not the founder, but I took over the reins in a way back in 2023. The impetus for the beginning of the company known as Cluedo was really a specific university needed a better version of what we became. And so it was a case of a customer needed something built specifically for them. Think of a university having perhaps dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe even thousands of different domains and thousands of different pages of web content. It's not unusual for a university to have hundreds of people editing the website every single day across all of that content. So makes the ability for a random person, a prospective student, an alum, a parent, a member of the faculty, to go to the homepage of the website and find exactly what they need by searching, which is something we've been doing as website users for decades now, searching for what we need via search bar. And so that was really the origin story. And then what we've done since then in the past 10 years is kind of pattern matched what people prefer to do on in their search experience, primarily with Google, but there's been Yahoo, there's been Bing, and now there's things like ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude, where people are finding information in new ways and having different experiences when they're seeking information. And so that's what we try and do. We try and keep up and kind of look to the future of what experiences could look like. So that's where we started, and I think that's where we're going. That's part of what makes it so fun. Is like, what does the future of the web look like? We're fortunate to sit alongside our customers and help kind of design it, and so it's part of the fun.
Yeah, that's it's actually I was going to ask you that, and I'm glad you brought it up because I was doing my research the other day. And again, it may be a dramatic statement, but the general statement was, SEO is not that important anymore. Being relevant in an LLM is much more. So that's kind of what you're talking about. Because now, if I go and search for something, hey, give me the top three universities, whatever it is I'm looking for, analyze them and do it. That's what you're talking about, is be able to get to the top of that as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think behavior change in in terms of things like ChatGPT, one of the fastest, if not the fastest, consumer technologies ever adopted. It's not everywhere. Not everybody searches only there. So there's this mixed kind of like, where do you go to find a specific thing? Obviously, many of us are searching to shop too. So there's an e-commerce elements and a transactional layer sometimes to that. So it gets pretty complicated. But yeah, I think like what we're seeing in our customer data and what we'll continue to see is people don't just search by keyword anymore. They search by intent. And Google's come out with, that's actually a change that they announced very, very recently. We're recording this on February 12th, 2026. So if anything sounds dated or out of pocket, I have an excuse, right? But even Google is now saying it's less so about keywords, it's more so about the intent of what you actually mean. So people are searching even on the sites that we support, which you may not think that much about, that people are using long strings of questions and asking like you would ask a person a question rather than looking for blue dress socks. You're going to look for what are the best blue dress socks that are my price point and blah, blah, blah. So it's just behavior change is happening really, really rapidly, and I think it becomes actually the next big hurdle then is trust. So how do you manage the where all this content is coming from and make it show up, not just avoiding hallucinations that are obviously wrong, but making it so somebody's just like SEO all over again, just making sure somebody's not gaming their way to the top and that the answers are actually trustworthy. I think Google, ChatGPT, and others have a real stake in the game to make sure the answers are like appropriate and trustworthy. So
Yeah. That's fun. I was thinking about that. Like yesterday, I was doing something to fix my website, and I was having issues. And I was like, I got to the end, and I've like, I I feel like we've become so enamored or like so close to Chat GPT. I actually said thank you for helping me find the answer. I was like, man, world has changed a lot.
I'm the same way. I was doing stuff on earlier today, and I found myself like I have to. I don't know. I'm from the Midwest of the U.S., so maybe that's part of it. But I find myself like saying please and thank you, and it's like you don't need to say that. Just boss it around like you would
Yeah.
the like somebody else, or like it's not human. So yeah, it's funny how I don't. Maybe that'll be a trend that happens within how we have human to human conversations too. The politeness will go away or the directness will ramp up. I don't know. Let's
I hope not. I hope not.
see.
So thinking about you coming in, we talk to different types. We talk to founders, we talk to CEOs, and things like that. So obviously, maybe a little bit about your personal background, and then when you came to Cluedo, like what are you charged with, and
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was extremely fortunate. I went many, many years ago. I went to university and I studied marketing, economics, and English literature as kind of a combined major here at the University of Minnesota. And at the time, I was like, that actually now I'm qualified to sell used cars or something. No disrespect to selling used cars, but it didn't have like a clear here's what you do next. But it was just what I was interested in, and it was what I was pulled towards. And then I think I got extremely fortunate to work for an entrepreneur in college. Literally, this, depending on the age of your audience, this may seem really, really old school, but I literally called the number out of a physical newspaper to get my first job within a local small like entrepreneur, and learned a lot from a founder of a small insurance agency that was doing some innovative things. Again, by just the grace of good fortune, he tasked me with creating websites for these niche insurance products. So this is 2000, 2001. I'm building microsites and landing pages before they were even called that, doing content marketing before that was really a thing, inbound marketing, like marketing automation before that was really, really in the mainstream of digital marketing. Because at that time it was like, do we even need a website? It wasn't even like a foregone conclusion that that was going to be a thing for every business. Anyway, very fortunate there. Started my career in really B2B marketing and marketing technology, and have followed that through line from that very early time, because I could actually see the impact I was making. I could see the leads, and then I could see that whatever the client was would then buy. It was like magic. It was like, I can do something as a marketing person that helps us make money. Now I understand. This is not like a abstract idea like at university. This is something I can actually have an impact on. And because we were so like relatively small, I was able to see the impact directly. So that's where I've been pulled my entire career. I've worked for some larger companies and some mid-sized companies and some very, very small and like startup type companies too, and always been fired up about being able to make an impact. So fast forward a few stops doing marketing and coming into Cluedo. I think my mandate here is to take this company to the next level, and also make sure that we're staying in line with the trends and in line with what we talked about earlier around behavior and how websites are expected to behave. So I have a marketing technology background, and I've learned a ton working with this company, since we have a European office and headquarters, and then we have our North America hub here in the Midwest. We have customers all over the world: Japan, Australia, New Zealand. And so it's been a wild ride in terms of the learning curve, but also really exciting, again, to work alongside some of the best brands on the planet to make their visitors either get a better experience, reduce costs of human to human support when it doesn't make sense, let people self serve, and at times even like have a direct through line to people search for something, they engage with it, and then they buy. That through line and that conversion gets me fired up too. So there's different flavors of what business outcomes look like, but we're able to drive those and see those directly. So part of what's fulfilling for me.
Oh, that's good input there. And so, and then from a growth perspective, cultural perspective, and things like that. What do you see as the key traits as a CEO like yourself to kind of surround yourself, and as you grow a team or manage a team, what are the two or three pieces of advice, traits, or whatever you want to characterize it as you see drive success?
Yeah, I think a big part of my job is to help people identify patterns that they might not otherwise see. And then a big part of my job is to stay out of the way of the expertise that we have. I feel like that can be uncomfortable. That can be a challenge for me. I have a ton of experiences. I've been a part of sales teams, a part of marketing teams, a part of leadership teams. I've gone down the venture capital path, private equity path, the acquisition path. So I have all these experiences to rely on. And like I said, I've been really fortunate to be a part of some great teams. All I'm trying to do is take the best of the leadership that I've seen and apply it. And I know that I don't know everything. I don't even know most of the languages that our employees speak natively. So I have huge gaps in terms of what I don't know, but there are experiences that I can rely on, and things that I take to heart. One of them is multiple stops along the way, having people in leadership, and including the CEOs and presidents and founders of companies, really care deeply about the problem that their company solves and care deeply about the customer problems, and understand them deeply. I don't think I could. It would be very, very unlikely that I would be successful in this role if I didn't take the time to truly understand the customer needs and customer problems. So I've tried to do that. There's a lot of balls to juggle in this role too, and the most challenging problems always kind of by design end up on my plate. So it's not always easy to focus on the customer, but that's my grounding, and that's what I try and encourage the team to stay grounded into.
Yeah, that's as well. I mean, I think you said you've been in business for a while. You look significantly younger than I do, but at the same time, um, one of the things that I've learned, and this is for you to validate or give it an opinion on, is as my years have gone by and as my leadership has grown, to truly surround yourself by smart people, but also I think you said something along the lines of, I always go in and say, look, I have an idea. It may not be the best idea, but it's based on my history, like, and create
Mm-hmm.
that freedom to be able somebody to challenge and say, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Why don't we try this? I mean, any opinions on that and feedback?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's needed, but also really difficult
Mm.
sometimes to have that vulnerability and to have that honesty. I think the way that I frame it, that I think it was a book called The Startup Way. Eric Ries wrote a book, and there's a quote in it that I have underlined, and that it's just stuck with me for a long time. And I'll probably not say it exactly like he did, but it is the idea that culture is built from people seeing a new way succeed. And if you think about that, and I've thought about that a lot and observed, is that really true in most situations? And I think it is. Companies are made of culture. What you want to try and build is a great place to be and be from someday. But the idea that seeing a new way succeed actually has a lot of elements kind of folded into it. So, what does a new way mean? It means we're leaving something behind. We're taking a chance on something new. What does seeing it mean? It means that we're able to celebrate the things that are working and recognize that not every new thing that we try is going to work. But when they do, we can take a pause. We can say, hey, wait a second, let's look at this. We had a reasonable expectation. We had a theory. We had a hypothesis on what was going to happen. It played out the way that we thought it would. It encourages the culture to then let the next good idea win, and have it as much of a meritocracy as you can make. So my idea may not be the one that succeeds. Whoever it is, let's celebrate it together, and let make sure that it doesn't get swept under the rug. And on the flip side of that, don't try and hide from the idea that every new idea is going to be a winner. because that builds a culture of people scared to take chances or scared to speak up. I think that that one quote actually packs a pretty big punch for me, and I try and reflect on that in the things that we do. And trust in the building of a strong culture is everything. I'm sure you've experienced that too. Without that, there's very we can't go very far if it's just me or if it's just one other person. We have to operate as a team, which is hinges on trust directly. So
I think those are such sound words because yeah, I've experienced, that when people say we have this amazing culture and literally it's just words and
yeah,
they're
yeah,
living through it, and I love
yeah.
the explanation of what you just said. I think it really, people can kind of put some thought and truly listen to that, because I think there's a lot of, like you said, it unpacks a lot. It's very very we've all lived the we
I
have
think
an amazing culture and not so
yeah,
much.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And you can backtrack into the cultures that aren't as strong, or the things when things go off track, or when there's like a tension or a vibe in the air. I find myself being trying to reground it in that. Of course, reground it in, are we really helping customers? Can we shine the spotlight on some customer successes? That can be a good way to kind of reinforce, this is not easy. We've got plenty of challenges, but look at the customer successes we're helping them achieve. That can be a helpful driver too. And I think the other aspect that I've come to recognize over time is, and another person on the team pointed this out long ago, and it stuck with me too. And I did a bunch of research on it just because it's usually how I operate. But the idea of like having a team that's full of people with high agency, which is something that again comes from trust and comes from some level of psychological safety. But think about people with high agency are able to actually identify and clearly articulate problems. They're able to speak up, which is in some organizations that's not part of the culture. And then the last piece is they're willing to be disagreeable sometimes. So being able to identify problems, being able to have a bias for action, and being able to speak up and speak your mind, and having a space where that's not just allowed but encouraged. I think that high agency piece, if you start to look for it, and if you start to pay attention to whether it's there or it's not there, there's just a pattern there that I see in the highest performing organizations I've been a part of. Like, the high agency people stand out, and that's really what drives us forward. And so trying to look for those in how we hire and how we develop people, and creating an environment that thrives, I think is a challenge for leadership, but it's like it is everything in a way. So
Yeah, I mean, you just made me think of something, and it's so 30 years ago, I joined a company that did that. They were starting a new manufacturing facility, and they literally picked a profile. So for me to get the job, I think it took 2 weeks. I took all these psychological tests,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
we got this group of people, and the whole objective was we want high functioning people who are going to work really hard, who are going to challenge the norm, and we're going to implement the most amazing processes, the best systems, and they'll probably all leave in 3 years because they'll be bored. And
yeah,
it was
yeah,
100%. I mean, the what I learned from that has carried a long way in my life. I wish there were more, kind of that type of focus out there. It sounds like it's something that you've done a version of. So really interesting.
yeah. It's hard though. I mean, like, a lot of this is people stuff, and at our scale we have under 40 employees right now, and every person's personality, everything that's going on in their life, like all of those things are real. And um, we have to appreciate the differences, and we have to appreciate, especially in a company like this, the cultural differences are real
Mm.
too. So trying to pick up and be sensitive to those things can be a challenge, I'll admit, but it's also part of what makes us stronger too, is recognizing those things, and trying to identify where the secret sauce is when you start to get it right. Yeah, so it's a journey, and I have made I there's my wife wants me to write a book, and I'm like, the book I would probably write, if anyone would read it, who knows? But the book I would probably write is something like how to make every single mistake you can possibly make, because I feel like I've made every single one.
Um, yeah,
So
and then how to learn from it, right? Because that's
I'll hopefully learn. Yeah, hopefully.
Oh,
Hopefully not
that's
repeat too many. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, so thinking through to kind of two new topic sections and go thinking about your your because of your typical day, like what does it look like, and then maybe just follow on say, hey, if there was one thing that I could take off my plate that I just like, I wish this, like, I want to do more of this and less of that. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's some practical things with my day just because I'm here in the Midwest and I work with people in Europe. I kind of have 2 days. I have my morning day, which starts pretty early. I'm an early riser by default anyway, but I do start pretty early so I can have as much overlap with Europe as I possibly can there. Copenhagen is 7 hours ahead of us here in Minnesota, so I need every minute that I can get before they go home and before the rest of the day starts up. So I have kind of 2 days. That's just a practical thing. I try and like do all the normal kind of Eisenhower matrix triage stuff for sure, and try and manage and execute at a high level, meaning prioritize the right things and delegate when appropriate. So I've gotten better at that. It's not my strong suit, honestly. Yeah, I tend to absorb maybe more than I should. I'm sure people would have that exact feedback for me. Uh, but then the other piece that I try and make time for, in fact, one of the things that I'm doing right now is I want to see the whole from time to time. I want to talk to the whole team, which we're still at a size where that's possible that I can do that over the course of a month or so, maybe even shorter time frame. And I want to see the whole customer experience from end to end. So right now, I'm literally spending a couple hours at least a week cold calling random strangers to try and get them interested in what we're doing, and then moving all the way through the process. Can we move them into the sales process? Can we push them through and get them implemented? Can we move them into customer success and support and so forth? And it's been instructive for me, and will continue to be. I think if I could rearrange my day, I would love to talk to customers more consistently. I would love to talk to prospects in the market and our partners more consistently. So making time for that means taking off the kind of like administrative things. We work with a lot of public sector customers, so there is a decent amount of contract and procurement kind of pieces that I sometimes get involved in, not all the time, and so that can be a I don't know, a time drag, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. And then just making space for the inevitable ways that we collaborate together. I do believe in the kind of like out of the blue conversations that are actually super beneficial. And it's where some of the best ideas come from. I worked for somebody once that used to say, never underestimate the value of wasting time. Wasting time meaning actually just like being together and letting the conversation kind of flow and not worrying too much about the clock running out, so to speak. So I don't know if that answers your question fully. There's
Yeah.
plenty of administrative things that I don't have a strong suit in, things like I don't know, financial statements and trying to. I do have a background in kind of like performance marketing and demand generation and revenue operations. So I feel like that is an area that I'm okay at, but it also means that sometimes that's my comfort zone, going into CRM and running reports rather than having tough conversations or moving into some kind of like higher order, higher leverage kind of activity. So sometimes I think it's natural that people default to what they're good at, and I've also found just over time, it's a good idea to play to people's strengths and not try and make people into something they're not, but also be careful of falling into the comfort zone rather than pushing ourselves out of it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a mix. Every day looks different too. That's for
No,
sure.
that's, I mean, to me, that's the best part. I studied to be an accountant, and I was like, I suddenly realized every day is the same. I was like, oh, I'm not, that doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
So you talked about in the beginnings, you said universities and banks and all of this. So like, what is your ideal customer? What do they look like? Is it across the board, or do they fit these couple of particular lanes?
Yeah, I think part of my job is to try and simplify. And one of the simple hurdles that I actually use fairly often is if a website has 1,000 pages of content, then it's probably big enough for us to be valuable enough to matter and to be affordable and to like drive enough value that it's worth it. And then the other piece of it, so that's filter number one. If you have 1,000 pages, you're probably in the right ballpark for something like us. If not, you can use something else and probably get by. The other piece that we've done intentionally as a product company through the years is not delve too far into the e-commerce world. Meaning, if you have a huge product catalog that has a bunch of different SKUs of, say, a pair of pants that has like 37 variations, and another shirt that has another 37 variations or something like that, that's probably not a good fit for us. But there are other providers that would be better. So that still leaves a huge total addressable market for us. So you're right. How do you define that? I think the other piece of it that we're really good at in the space is there is a continuum of, you could go down the path of building something yourself if you had a big team, or you had internal expertise somehow, some way of building out internal search or intranet search. You might be able to apply that internal expertise to building your own system. Then you take on the maintenance costs, and you take on that as a piece of what you own when you build it yourself. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you might try and get by with something that is extremely simple and good enough, put it in the good enough category. That's like the easy button. We tend to fit somewhere in the middle of that, where we have a system that's extremely flexible. People are using our API to do some amazing and magical things. We're moving into this generative AI response world too. So that has a layer of sophistication that a lot of our customers are liking and want to get into. So we're not the build it yourself, box of Legos, and we're also not the easy button, one click and you have the basics. We're somewhere in the middle. And then the other way that I think about our ideal customer profile is when there's a buyer has a vision, and maybe they for whatever reason they've done their own evaluation of, people are on my site and they are going to search for things, and when they find them, I would love to know what their terms they use so I can fill in content gaps. I want to get them to where they want to go. So they have this vision for people searching on their site that's very in tune with a premium solution like ours. Couple that vision that they already have with a relatively small team, and not the ability to have that team of 5 people working on this every day. So that mix of, they want it, they know how valuable it is, but they don't have the resources to support it, again, makes our solution a good fit. So I know you can't find those things in Zoom Info or a profile database. Those attributes are a little bit harder to come by and not always controllable by us, but we can influence how people think about site search. And that's what we try and do every day. I think there's some natural things. When I think about all those parameters, there are some natural things that where site search is inevitably going to be really important. Higher education, as an example, inevitably the people that are visiting that website are going to have a wide array of the audience and in a wide array of what they're looking for. If I'm a parent, I'm going to be looking for something very different than if I'm a prospective student, or I'm a prospective faculty member, or I'm the news that's looking for some academic research, and on and on and on. So the spray of different audience types coupled with some of those things can be really important. And then we have manufacturing customers where they have an indirect sales channel. So say they have a network of distributors, a person may come to the site, search for a very, very specific product. So product XQ77 is the piece that they need. You're not going to find that doesn't have any context anywhere else except for that single manufacturer. So that part lookup or that product lookup can be really, really important. We can cater to that need too, and then connect them to a distributor and let them measure that and let them evaluate how effective that through line is. So there's just some use cases that are really, really attuned to search that we cater to. And then also trying to put ourselves in the right position when somebody has a challenging search problem to solve. We One of our unique attributes is that we are willing to and have consciously invested in. We're not just a solution that you're on your own once you implement. We have a customer success team and a support team that's very attuned to the long-term needs of our customers. And I know that probably sounds like table stakes, or that sounds obvious, but in our category, it's actually not very common. And so we get that called out fairly frequently as a differentiator for us. So we'll keep that up and try and continue to bolster that as how we add value.
Oh, that's. I mean, again, like you say, sometimes what's that word is some of the obvious things are maybe not that obvious with others. That if you're taking care of your customers, you're listening to them, and all of those things. It's not always what everybody's doing. So as we reach the end of our time here, I was just going back to the CEO thing, coming into a company. If somebody was about to start their CEO job tomorrow, what's one, two, three, whatever the number is of things to say.
My,
This is,
yeah,
if I was to start tomorrow, this is what I would do, and it helps you be successful.
yeah. I think I would establish a vision fairly early on, but also establish the the right. It depends on the situation, but I almost every time that I've gotten into trouble with trying to solve problems and getting frustrated when we're not moving fast enough, or getting frustrated when I have to repeat something many, many times before it starts to sink in. First, you have to give yourself the grace that that's the reality. There's a saying: by the time you get sick of saying something is about the time it starts to sink in, right? I think that's totally true, and totally human, and nobody's fault, so to speak. It's just how it is, and so get used to having a vision that you're kind of repeating, and you have conviction around it, and ground yourself in knowing that it's right. Then the other principle that I think I take to heart quite a bit is trying to figure out how can we make the pieces of solving a problem, even if it's an enormous problem, make the pieces of solving it as small and as incremental as possible. So have a long-term vision. That's part of leadership, but also be able to execute in leading indicators and very discrete chunks that people can see and start to feel. I think it's very easy to say we're going to be XYZ and that's we're going to the moon, but without helping people understand how every day or every very, very short cycles they're contributing to landing on the moon. Without that, you people go in different directions and they get off course, and I think we go slower and don't act quite as effectively as we could. So my advice would be to take the time, listen to customers, establish and reset the vision as much as possible, and then figure out what the smallest units of growth look like and build on those, build on success, give people the spotlight, be vulnerable, all of the things that we mentioned before. So
I love that. Great way to finish it up. I appreciate that advice. So just remind us again, name of the company, website, finding you on LinkedIn. Just how does anybody do that?
yeah, if you have 1,000 pages of content on your website, visit cludo.com and reach out if you have questions. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn, Nick Wassenberg. So I'm out there. Yeah, and I'm not that active on social, but I love talking to people. I was told, and I think I still do believe that I'm a fairly introverted person. That's what all the assessments said. So but I do love to talk to people one on one. That's kind of my one of my favorite things. So, yeah, would welcome anybody reaching out to learn more about Cluedo, what we're doing, what we're hiring for, and all the above.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your perspectives and all of the advice. A wonderful episode. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Good times.